Princess Kemi had a big problem. Although she was a princess and lived in a beautiful African kingdom with her father, King Ade, there was still one thing that weighed on her like a heavy burden. No, she wasn't too big or too skinny, nor did she have bad body odor. She was just too smart. You might ask, is that really a problem? But Princess Kemi would answer with a resounding yes. She was so intelligent that it became the reason she couldn't find a man to marry. Kemi was tired of meeting men who wanted to marry her just because she was a princess. They all talked about how rich they were, or how much land they owned, but none of them really made her think or laugh. She wanted someone who could really talk with her about everything, from why the stars shone at night to the best way to solve a problem troubling their land. She needed a soulmate who was also very smart, but such a person seemed nowhere to be found. Princess Kemi liked walking with no shoes in the palace gardens, laughing as the trees whispered around her. She could spend all day reading, getting lost in stories about brave journeys and smart people. Kemi had a big heart too, and would sometimes put on simple clothes and go help the people in her kingdom. She loved to paint as well, making pictures of small flowers, big mountains and everything in between. King Ade was growing more and more worried every day. He knew it was time for his daughter, Princess Kemi, to find a husband, but none of the men she met were right for her. They all wanted to marry her because she was a princess, but none could match her intelligence or satisfy her curiosity about the world. The king knew his daughter needed someone special, someone who could truly understand her and keep up with her sharp wit. So he called a meeting with his wisest advisors, the elders and sages of the kingdom, and together they spent days and nights debating and brainstorming. They needed to find a way to test the intelligence and depth of each potential suitor. At last, they came up with the most complicated riddle the kingdom had ever known, with layers upon layers of meaning and mystery. It was a challenge almost impossible to solve. With the riddle ready, King Ade prepared to travel his kingdom. He told his people about his quest to find a smart and curious husband for Princess Kemi, someone who could solve the riddle made by his wise men. He packed his bags, gathered a group of trusted advisors, and together with Princess Kemi, they set out on a long journey. They traveled on dusty roads, through busy towns and sleepy villages, and across rivers that reflected the sky. In each place, King Ade gathered the young men who wanted to marry his daughter and asked them the riddle. The riddle was tough, full of twists and turns, like a path through a thick forest. The young men tried their best, giving answers that were sometimes clever, but never right. The king listened, hoped, and often shook his head. As no one could answer the riddle, King Ade's heart grew heavier. He wondered if they'd ever find the person meant for Kemi. They visited grand cities in neighboring lands, where the young men were even more eager to marry a princess. But despite their education and confidence, not one could solve the riddle. They offered gifts and promises, but King Ade just wanted the right answer. Weeks passed, and the king and his caravan turned back toward home, their journey seeming longer now, filled with a quiet disappointment. King Ade couldn't help but think that maybe this mission was impossible. Maybe there was no perfect match for his daughter out there. But deep down, he held on to a glimmer of hope that someone, somewhere, could win Kemi's heart with their mind. On the way back home, they stopped at another village where a suitor named Tunde, the son of a rich man, came up to them. He was very confident that his big house and lots of land would make him the perfect husband for Princess Kemi. With a cheeky grin, Tunde told King Ade, "Surely my wealth and property could be as good as solving your riddle, right? A princess would live well with me." Hearing this, Kemi asked him a simple question. "But can your money teach you how to be a good leader, or fill your heart with understanding?" Tunde was thrown off and quickly said, "I can always pay for advisors to help me with that, can't I?" Kemi looked at him, serious but kind, and said, "You can't buy a good heart or a wise mind. What will you do when something really tough comes up?" Tunde got very upset. He retorted with offense, "So, my lands don't mean anything to you? With your silly belief in fairy tales, you'll never find anyone good enough for you, and you'll end up alone forever." In another village, there lived a man named Okoro, known far and wide for his intelligence. His reputation for being the sharpest mind among his peers was spoken of in every household. Standing tall before King Ade, he confidently exclaimed, "Your riddle seems a puzzle without end, Your Majesty. Moreover, to my mind, there seems no solution necessary. With a brain as bright as mine, does a princess truly need such puzzles?" Kemi, with a hint of curiosity sparkling in her eyes,
does sharp wit alone
responded,
teach one to lead with kindness
"and make wise decisions." Taken aback, Okoro hurriedly claimed, "For any difficulty, I shall simply seek counsel from the educated." Kemi, her eyes warm with sincerity, retorted, "Sharp wit can open many doors, but it cannot substitute for the wisdom of the heart. What will you do when faced with trials that demand compassion?" Frustrated, Okoro's pride was wounded. He defensively shot back, "You dismiss my intellect. If you continue to chase after impossible ideals, you might find yourself waiting for a prince who never arrives." The princess felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. A seed of doubt took root in her heart. Maybe they were right. Perhaps she should stop chasing the impossible. King Ada hung his head, feeling a little angry, a bit unsure, and really worried all at once after hearing what was said to his daughter. Yet, deep down in his heart, King Adi held on to a glimmer of hope that the right person for his daughter was still out there, waiting to be found. As they neared the journey's end, there was only one last village remained. King Adi and his daughter Kemi felt the weight of their unfulfilled quest. One evening, as they sat under the blanket of stars that seemed to listen in on their conversation, Kemi shared her deepest thoughts with her father. "Father," she said, her voice steady with conviction, "I would rather walk through life alone, with books and dreams as my companions, than be bound to someone who doesn't stir my mind or understand my heart." King Adi listened, a sigh escaping him as he grappled with his daughter's words. "Kemi, my dear," he replied, "your happiness is the jewel of this kingdom, and your solitude weighs heavy on my soul. Yet, I cannot lower the standard to which we both aspire. If the man we seek doesn't reveal himself in the next village, then so be it." After they talked, Kemi and her father were very quiet, feeling a bit sad. They both really hoped that in the last village they would finally find the right man. They were looking for someone special, someone who could really understand Kemi and share her love for learning and exploring all the secrets of the world. In the last village, a crowd of men gathered, each eager to try their luck. Some were really sure of themselves and all their knowledge, while others were more calm and serious. There were all kinds of men like teachers, farmers, people who made things, and those who sold things. They were all there for one reason: to guess the riddle right and get the chance to marry Princess Kemi. One by one, they stepped up. The proud ones boasted of their knowledge before attempting an answer, only to walk away with furrowed brows, their pride dimmed by disappointment. The quietly confident gave thoughtful answers, but they too couldn't crack the code of the riddle. Those who came just to try were left scratching their heads in wonder. As they left the last village, Princess Kemi felt a sadness in her chest. She thought about being all by herself in the coming years. They had gone to every place they could, asking all the men who wanted to try, but nobody had answered the riddle. Kemi sat quietly, looking out as the countryside passed by, feeling pretty lonely because it seemed like there was no one out there who was right for her. Disheartened, King Adi's caravan was leaving the very last village when they heard someone running and calling out. It was Obi, a shepherd boy with no riches to his name. He was running as fast as he could, waving his arms and shouting for them to stop. "Wait! Please! Stop!" he called out, his voice filled with urgency. The guards slowed the caravan, and the king ordered them to halt. This young man, out of breath, and with eyes wide with a mix of determination and curiosity, approached them. King Adi asked, "Young man, what drives you to chase after a royal caravan with such urgency?" "I must speak with you, your majesty. It's about the riddle. I don't have the answer, but it's taken hold of my mind. I cannot rest, nor can I tend to my flock, for my mind is ablaze with the need to know, to understand. I realize I am not good enough for your daughter, but please give me the answer to that riddle of yours." Obi said, out of breath from running but filled with a strong desire to solve the riddle that puzzled him so much. King Adi and Kemi, watching quietly, shared a look. This young man had no treasures to boast of, but his need to know and understand was as deep and wide as a mighty river. Kemi, touched by Obi's true need to learn, stepped out. She told him, "You're looking for answers, and that's more important than knowing the riddle itself. A really great man is always learning, never just satisfied with what he knows." The king realized then, watching the young man before him, who cared more about finding answers than gaining a crown, that Obi could be just right for Kemi. Obi's passion for understanding was the true treasure, the kind that Kemi valued above all. King Adi saw in Obi, not a suitor dressed in silks or jewels, but one adorned with the rare jewels of curiosity and humility, the perfect match for his daughter. Then he said, "Come ride with us." He helped Obi into the carriage. As they rode home, they talked and asked each other lots of questions. Obi didn't just become a guest. He became someone who loved to learn just like they did. They all felt happier as they went back to the palace, knowing they had found a new friend who loved discovering things just as much as they did. True wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about always wanting to learn more. The really wise person doesn't stop asking questions or searching for answers. That's what makes life a beautiful adventure. The story tells us that the key to being wise is having a heart that's always ready to discover new things. I've really enjoyed sharing this story with you, reveling in the twists and turns of the riddle, and delighting in the character's quest for wisdom. If you found joy and wisdom in this tale, as I have in telling it, I'd warmly invite you to stay tuned for more stories. Go ahead and subscribe so you won't miss out on the next adventure. We have many more tales to explore and lessons to uncover together. Blessings to you on your journey, and may your story be as enchanting as the tales we share. Until we meet again in our next adventure, take care and stay curious.